just how many? It's the subject of fierce debate in Washington, where Democratic leaders want to withdraw more troops than the Pentagon recommends. And it is, of course, a matter of deep concern on the front lines of the war zone. Martha Raddatz recently traveled to Afghanistan and files this report.
The calls from politicians and pundits in Washington for a substantial and rapid drawdown of U.S. forces echo only faintly in the rugged mountains of eastern Afghanistan. Soldiers and Marines, from top generals to frontline troops, worry that much work remains to be done here.
I think in certain selected areas that, we'll be here for a while.
Lieutenant General David Rodriguez is just completing a tour running the day-to-day operations of the war. He says American troops will be required for quite some time.
All for board! Provide covering fire!
I could see people here past 2014. So it'll take a while for the Afghans to really build the capacity enough that they can do it on themselves.
We recently visited a small outpost in the Pesh Valley that had been under mortar fire just before our arrival. We were with Major General John Campbell on his last battlefield tour along the treacherous border with Pakistan.
You know the mood. How do you convince people that you should keep going here?
Well, I tell them to take a look at the progress we've had over the last year. I tell them to take a look at, we haven't had another 9/11 since we've had forces on the ground here. And I think that's key. It takes time to work this counterinsurgency fight.
The counterinsurgency efforts may indeed be working here. There's lots of progress to be seen. But counterinsurgency takes lots of troops, lots of time, and lots of money.
With men like you, Afghanistan has nothing but a great future.
Recently promoted to Brigadier General,
awesome.
Gary VOLESKY was in Iraq during some of the worst fighting there. That insurgency was eventually tamed and security turned over to local forces and the central government. He says the same needs to happen here.
What we have to do is partner closely with our Afghan counterparts and get them more capable and pull that government to the people and build that institution. And I see it happening every day.
The soldiers in the trenches are eager to go home, but they too think there's more to be accomplished. 3 local school children were wounded in the recent mortar attack here.
We need to stay for them because allow those kids to grow up. We want to give them an opportunity to live without fear for just walking to school, for example. And that can change a country.
The Bronze Star Medal with Valor Device is
And at the other end of the chain of command, Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, who is stepping down soon, assured NATO allies on Friday that the U.S. is in no hurry to make major cuts in combat forces.
I can tell you there will be no rush to the exits. The vast majority of the surge forces that arrived over the past 2 years will remain through the summer fighting season.
And Martha Raddatz joins me now. Martha, we know that the top levels of the military are comfortable with somewhere around 5,000 to 10,000 leaving this summer. But the White House, Capitol Hill, Democrats, they want a lot more. How is this going to play out?
Well, I think you'll see us going back to 2009, when the debate was about how do you fight this war? Is counterinsurgency the best strategy? As I said in the piece, it's very expensive. It takes a long time. Just last November, General David Petraeus said we're really at the beginning of the timetable for a successful counterinsurgency, which is 9 to 10 years. The American public does not have the patience for leaving huge numbers.
Administration officials don't. I mean, the vice president doesn't want that. The
Senator
national
John
security
Kerry,
advisor.
There is going to be a lot of pushback on this and a lot of debate. And you've got President Barack Obama, who just decided to go in and kill Osama bin Laden. He is far more seasoned in the national security arena. So I think you can see a lot heavier pushback to the military. Obviously, the military wants to stay. They want to see this through. They're there on the ground. They're losing buddies every day. But I do think you'll see a bit of a clash here.
Let's go again to Secretary Gates, who issued a very uncharacteristically blunt warning to the NATO alliance, the historic alliance between the United States and Europe, saying that if they didn't pull their weight, this whole thing was going to collapse. Let's just run a little bit of what he said to the Europeans.
The blunt reality is that there will be dwindling appetite and patience in the United States Congress and in the American body politic writ large to expend increasingly precious funds on behalf of nations that are apparently unwilling to devote the necessary resources or make the necessary changes to be serious and capable partners in their own defense.
So, Martha, obviously we all know the United States does much of the heavy lifting in NATO. But here's the question. How can Secretary Gates expect the Europeans to be serious about Libya, which he didn't want to go into and which they're pulling all their weight, even about Afghanistan, when they can see the United States wants to get out? I mean, how does he make that argument now when the U.S. is showing that it wants out?
Well, I think the argument is we're in together, we're out together. If the U.S. starts gradually pulling down, he wants the allies to start gradually pulling down. Unfortunately, these statements were made as he's going out the door. There's been pretty much dead silence from the allies about this speech, so we'll have to see whether it really has an effect.